Hello, I'm Candace, Special Education Instructional Facilitator for Lamar Consolidated Independent School District. And today I'm going to discuss with you Unwrapping the TEKS. So let's dive in. So why should we focus on the TEKS? Well, it answers three essential questions. First, what do you want the students to know? That's your curriculum. Second, how are you going to teach it? That's your instruction. And third, how will you know when they've learned it? That's your assessment. If you do those three things, at the center of that's where we'll find student learning. So I want you to imagine a text features lesson. You're in a third grade reading classroom. The students are working in cooperative groups. They're looking through a variety of resources to find different text features. They're looking at magazines, newspapers, and books. And you see the students are either cutting out those text features, some are actually going online to research and print out some text features, and then they're gluing these pictures in a foldable, which is great for visual learners. So inside that lesson, we see a lot of highlights, like student collaboration, use of technology, they're making connections from the class and locating those text features, and we see student engagement. Sounds like it's a great lesson. Well, the TEK reads, use text features to locate information and make and verify predictions about context of text. The teacher used the noun to guide the instruction, which was text features. So the students were identifying and classifying text features. But the question I really want to know is, did the lesson address the TEK? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Once again, when we look at unwrapping the TEKS, that means you're providing a different way to look at the TEK. And that starts by pulling out the verb first. If they have done that, you'll notice that the verbs are locate, make predictions, and verify predictions. And so it's an easy way to identify how many ways that same TEK can be tested. So let's take a look at unwrapping the TEK a little deeper. For visual, I want you to visualize the number of ways that the TEK can be tested. So with our example about text features, it can actually be tested in three different ways: by locating the information using text features, by making predictions about contents of text using text features, and by verifying those predictions about contents of text using text features. So once again, if you focus on the verb first and then follow it with the nouns, you'll see that everything is directly connected and that there's three different ways you can test that one particular TEK. So now it's your turn. Let's take a look at a few TEKs and unwrap it. Remember, you're going to select the verb first, then directly connect it to the noun and make a new branch where it's appropriate. So let's give it a go. Here's your first TEK. Compare and order whole numbers up to 100,000 and represent comparisons using the symbols greater than, less than, or equal to. So let's start by picking out the verbs first. First verb we notice is compare. Second verb, order, and the third verb, represent. So again, if you pull those verbs out first, then you want to directly connect them to the noun. So it'll look a little something like this. Compare whole numbers up to 100,000, order whole numbers up to 100,000, and then represent the comparisons using greater than, less than, and equal to. So now let's try it again. Here's your TEK. Sequence and summarize the plot's main events and explain their influence on future events. Once again, start by picking out your verbs first. Sequence, summarize, explain. Once I've pulled out my verbs first, I can now directly link them to the nouns and clearly see that in this TEK, I'll be sequencing the plot's main events, summarizing the plot's main events, and explaining those main events' influence on future events. So once again, this one TEK can actually be tested in three different ways. So application. Well, some great ways that we can actually apply this is that teachers can now use these unwrapped TEKs to plan. So it allows the teachers to actually plan for a variety of ways that they're going to be introducing their lesson. So they can ask themselves, are they providing students an opportunity to learn the skill or concept in all of the different ways that the TEK is allowing for? They can then check to make sure that all of the components of the TEK are listed on their lesson plan. Let's face it, the reality is this: if you don't plan for 3 different ways, then it's not going to happen. So if you see 3 branches in a TEK, then you want to plan for 3 different ways that you're actually going to be addressing that TEK. Also, administration can use unwrapped TEKs as a guide when checking lesson plans and during their evaluations. Another good thing to note about application for unwrapping the TEKS is that you can check to make sure that your assignments and assessments are aligned to the verbs of the TEK. So just like with our example, when the students were creating a foldable where they were locating those text features, although it was a great activity, that's something that should not have been a grade. Instead, what they could have done was use a Time for Kids article asking some of these questions, like, what do you think this article will be about? And now the students have to look at the map and make predictions using that particular text feature. Or they could be looking in an article where they have to locate text features that are like italics and highlighting, so that way they're using that text feature to actually locate information. Or by looking at the pictures and having to read the captions so they can verify predictions using the text features. All of those things listed there are ways that that one TEK could have been tested. So when we talk about unwrapping the TEKs, overall it's a mind shift. We want to get our teachers to stop doing what they've been doing. You now need to read the TEK in its entirety, unwrap it properly, and then use that to guide your instruction. Thank you so much for watching, and get out there and start unwrapping some TEKs.